not actress, but director of theater. I forgot her now, her name. And she made, what's her name? I didn't give you an regisseur, but I forgot her name right now. And she made a whole evening in the Teatron Kamari, Vayomer Vayelech, it was called. Rina Yerushalmi. Rina Yerushalmi, probably one of the most important persons in the Israeli theater. And she did not, she used only biblical words. In other words, the whole drama is quotations from the Bible. And what did she do with the story of Yiftah? She let a girl tell the story, believe it or not, 7 times. At the 7th time, you weep. Simply, a girl was sitting on the stage, on an empty stage, and the effect of this dramatic presentation was that you hear it 7 times, and you don't want to hear it so many times. It's a horrible story. So, how come that God was so passive in this story? So, why is God healing in the story of Abraham and not healing in the story of Yiftah? Why is child sacrifice not prevented by God in the story of Yiftah? And what does the intertextuality between these stories mean? Does it, is it a way of protest, saying that actually the connection shows that we expect God to be like in the Akeida? Or is the Akeida the secret key to our story, which I believe? So this is the theme of our evening today. The military or the political background is only important to understand the character of Yiftah. Now, like Ishmael, he is an outcast. He's very angry and very bitter. And I would say that this is quite shocking. What I like about the Bible, I told you this probably 4 times last year, so this is the first time I do it this year. I like the Bible because it's so true. True to life. It doesn't cover up the dark sides of its characters. So Yiftah is the only savior, the only shofet, who makes a condition, a political condition. I will save you on condition that you will repay me with a political position. Unbelievable. If I will go tomorrow to a yeshiva tichonit or a yeshivat esder and say, do you believe that one of the shoftim was not sent directly by the Almighty, but was nominated by the elders of his tribe, and he was prepared to do his national duty to save his people only if he will be repaid politically? They would say, this is right about Chavrei HaKnesset. This is politics as we know it from life, but not biblical politics. Not this. This is a very heroic book, the book of Shoftim. True heroes. But this is what the true book says about Yiftah. That he wouldn't go unless he gets this political promise. Now you ask yourself, will God really help such a person? Will God make him an instrument to save Israel? This is what the reader, who is well conditioned by the book of Shoftim, now asks himself, will God make Yiftah the real savior of Israel? We don't like him not because he is the son of a prostitute. We don't like him, or I don't like him, because he makes a condition before he goes out to do his duty. His very basic duty, to use his extraordinary abilities for the sake of his people, right? So now we have a very long story which I have to cut short. It turns out to be that he's not only a good negotiator for his own purposes, he is a very able negotiator when he deals with the enemy. We have a long, long story here. He says he sends messengers to the king of Amon and says, Ma li valach, why do you attack me? What did I do wrong to you? He speaks in the name of the people in a big I, with a capital I. He speaks in the name of his tribe. And the king of Amon says, Israel has taken from me a piece of my land, and if you give it back to me, I won't attack you. But I have territorial claims. Now, please imagine the map of Israel. You have the Jordan in the middle, and we go now to the eastern side, to the Transjordan, and there are two small rivers which flow into the Jordan River. The southern one is called Arnon, Nachal Arnon, and the more northern one is called Nachal Yabok, where Yaakov Avinu had his fight with the angel. And this land between the Arnon and the Yabok is now the disputed territory between Gilad and Amon. I hope you follow me in spite of the fact that my map is a little virtual. Anyway, it's a piece of land. This was actually the land which the tribe of Gad was inhabiting. So we have now, which sees that Yiftah has learned his history or his Bible quite well, and he says, please remember this territory never belonged to Amon. It belonged to Sichon, to a great king who was on the northern side of Transjordan, and we asked him for permission to go through his territory to reach our promised land, and he refused, so we fought Sichon, and we took this territory from Sichon, not from you. The truth of the matter is that Sichon has conquered this formally from the Ammonites. So we were never your enemies. We never took something from you. God told us not to cross your country because you are relatives of ours, because, you know, they were descendants of Lot. Yes, of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. Toda Rabba. And he says, and you were quiet for 300 years. You know, there's a feeling that Chok HaYitYashnut, how you say it in English? Statute of limitation. I would say Hityashnut comes that a long time has passed away since the sin, and so even if something, why did you not cry out all these 300 years? Which means that you accepted this, that this is a parcel of our heritage. And the king of Amon is not impressed by this lesson in history, as always strong. Could you imagine that somebody would tell the Russians when they were strong that with historical claims you would come against the Red Army? So they were not impressed, and they say, either you give us this territory or we attack you. And he ends up this negotiation with a verse which I would like to quote. Please look at the second page. We are already at the second side of the page. And it starts, "Now then, the Lord, the God of Israel, dispossessed the Ammonites before his people Israel, and should you possess their land, do you not hold what Kmosh, your God, gives you to possess? So we will hold on to everything that the Lord our God has given us to possess." And no, this is not the verse I want. Yishpot, where does it say? Kav Zayin. I have done you no wrong. Look at 27. Please look at 27. "I have done you no wrong, yet you are doing me harm and making war on me. May the Lord, who judges this..." That's horrible. He speaks horrible English. "Yishpot Hashem b'ni u'v'nechem" are so strong words. So he is a little stuttering, like Moshe Rabbeinu. "May the Lord, who judges, decide today between the Israelites and the Ammonites." I'll read you this in beautiful Hebrew, which shows us the elegance of this leader. And he says, "ואנוכי לא חטאתי לך, ואתה עושה איתי רעה להילחם בי, ישפוט אדוני השופט היום בין ישראל ובין עמון." Which means, maybe we are weak, or seem weak to you, but there is God in heaven, and He's a true judge, and He judges rightly, and He can help us out from your hands. So it's a very interesting problem. Why did he make these long negotiations, which every political advisor will tell him in advance that to no avail? Probably he wanted to gain time. Probably he wanted to present himself as a very able negotiator. But maybe the main reason is that he wants to strengthen the spirit of Israel, and what he says to the foreign king, all the Israelites here, if we are wronged by this mighty neighbor, God will help us out. Yishpot Hashem b'ni u'b'nei. You see that Yishpot means here to judge and to save simultaneously. And now it says that the Spirit of God overcame him. Vatihi al Yiftach ruach Adonai. How would it be in English? 29. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Yiftach. He marched through Gilad and Menashe and so on, and crossed over to the Ammonites. And Yiftach made the following vow. This is a very interesting expression. The Spirit of God came over our Shofet. What does this mean? He is a very strong and able hero. But he needs to be spirited. He needs to feel that God is really sending him to this mission. I once, there was Mr. Halpern, you know, the man who sells us in the radio every day glasses. And he was once the strongest person in Israel, Mar Israel, Mr. Israel. And when he came back from one of his, how do you say, Masaot, journeys to abroad, he came back from Germany. And he said that he was sitting somewhere, he was in Germany, and there was a competition, how do you say, how do you say? Arm wrestling. So he was against the strongest German from one side, and there was a German audience, and there was one Israeli Jew, not rabbi as yet, from the other side, and it was even-handed. None of them could overcome the other. And then Mr. Halpern says, I said to myself, you don't fight for yourself. You are the Jewish people. He is the German people. And he overcome him. I would say in biblical terms, in the spirit of the Lord. This is very, very clear in the story of Shimshon. In other words, he was a very strong man, but he needed this extra energy, inspiration. They say that if a mother sees a child, a rock covering her child, she gets so energized that she can raise a rock which she usually cannot dream. It's like Yaakov Avinu when he saw a very pretty girl, and as you remember, he also overcame a very heavy rock. So this is very clear psychological terms. In more sophisticated terms, we would say that he was a charismatic military leader, and his charisma, he was empowered